You basically grew up in a restaurant, as I understand it. What was it like leaving China, moving to Illinois, and starting this new life?
It was a classic immigrant story. In many ways, I would say, looking back, almost a fairy tale-like journey where, my parents came to the U.S. with $250 in the bank. We immigrated to Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. My dad got his degree at the University of Illinois. My mom put food on the table by working 3 jobs a day, one of which did happen to be in a Chinese restaurant where I moonlighted as a dishwasher. So I got to hang out with mom that way as a way of growing up, and I did that. I mowed lawns, and that's really kind of how I saved up money to buy Nintendo games and do all the things that were the wonders of my childhood.
What do you think you learned from that? Mowing lawns early, washing dishes early.
I think 2 things. One, looking backwards, it's just that you have to work to actually get things done. I didn't understand what it meant to live off of food stamps, to buy groceries, or free and reduced lunch, every day inside school. But it was a very empowering feeling to buy my own Nintendo or earn my way to buying my first Apple computer. The second thing was really just the power of independent thinking. My parents, because they were so busy just trying to make a life for our family, that I was largely left alone. So I grew up playing basketball, watching TV. That's how I learned English. I grew up moving around a lot as a kid. And as a result, I think that gave me a lot of time to realize that it's pretty important to think for yourself.
So you studied engineering at Berkeley, you went to business school at Stanford, and you actually started out as an intern at Square.
I did.
I can't tell you how many people have said to me, Tony Xu was my intern at Square. That's how long I've been doing this, and how, DoorDash just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was actually a pretty stiff competition between finishing school. Jack Dorsey and Keith Raboy were trying to convince me to leave Stanford and work at Square full-time. It was a fun and busy period of my time, but I enjoyed both.
So how did the idea for DoorDash come about, and the decision to not work for, Jack Dorsey and Square, which I'm sure was also kind of intoxicating, right?
The idea for DoorDash really came from this, lifelong interest in helping these physical business owners, really people like my mom. So we talked to hundreds of small business owners, and it was surprising to us that even in 2013, delivery was not a solved problem. There were business owners who would show us literally booklets of delivery orders that they would refuse. I mean, we were talking about thousands of dollars per week, which is, the difference sometimes between making payroll and actually, surviving. And they would just turn them down because they were delivery orders, which to us was a really novel and unfortunate phenomenon, and frankly, unnecessary one. And that really became, the impetus to start DoorDash.
You started out driving for competitors, right?
I was driving for a lot of different services to try to actually understand, logistics. My background, as you mentioned, more in engineering, math. I thought I was going to be a cancer researcher. That's pretty much what I spent all of my undergraduate days at Berkeley doing. That kind of 180'd into world of business. And so I think it's really important to really learn things for yourself, to think from first principles. Kind of, again, back to that independent thinking mindset I talked about as a child growing up.
Did you drive for Uber, Lyft?
I even drove for, services that were a little bit older, services like FedEx or Domino's, and really try to explore, how does delivery work? And it was really trying to understand, every component part. It sounds really simple, right? Bring you a burrito from point A to point B, but there were actually 20 steps involved in that delivery. It just didn't appear as obvious to the naked eye. So the first 2 years of DoorDash's life, we did deliveries almost every single day.